Hey guys, Jay Siemens here. In today's video, I'm giving you a walkthrough of the ultimate ice fishing snowmobile. All right guys, well this is the long-awaited Expedition walkthrough video. I know you guys have been asking for it. I've seen all the comments and there's a few reasons why I didn't do it right away. First off, I wanted to get a few more miles on the sled. This is only my second season with it. I think we're up to 800, 850 miles now. So I can speak from experience how the sled has been performing. Secondly, is I wanted to have it fully decked out. There's some accessories that I wanted to add along the way, some things I had to make myself. And I wanted to show you how I found it the most functional with what I've added. I find that very helpful when I'm watching a walkthrough video, may it be an ATV or a boat or a snowmobile. I wanna see how people have their machines decked out. So basically, there's gonna be some technical specs in this video. That's not my forte. My forte, I would say more so, is just accessorizing and trying to make it as functional as possible for filming and fishing and for what I do, right? So I'll give you a little history on my experience with expeditions. I went north for a ski-doo shoot to Iqaluit up in Nunavut in northern Canada, and the outfitter there used strictly expeditions. Going out into the wilderness, the sled that they trusted was the Expedition. So when I was picking a sled, that's like, okay, well, if that's what they use at the end of the world, that's what I want to use. Just through talking with fishing buddies and other people in the industry, I've just seen the Expedition come up again and again and again. You look at these people that rely on their snowmobiles day in and day out, and that's the type of snowmobile I want. So that's why I went with the Expedition. I guess first off, this is a 2024 Expedition SE. There's a couple different tiers. The SE has a couple nicer bells and whistles. Like, this snowmobile is so quiet. I'll start it up just so you guys can hear. That's the beauty of a four-stroke. It's quiet, it purrs. That's an eco mode. If you go to normal mode and go up into sport mode, you can hear the RPMs a little bit higher, it's a little bit louder, but when you start up on eco mode, it is so quiet. So there's an eco mode, your standard mode, and then a sport mode. Eco mode is obviously going to conserve gas, and it's not as jumpy and sporty, obviously. I honestly don't even fully trust myself in sport mode with the amount of power this thing has. So there's the options of the 900 Ace, 900 Ace Turbo, 900 Ace Turbo R, stands for racing, kind of 3 different tiers of horsepower. I went with the turbo. I just wanted that little more juice for if I'm hauling a big load. I have that big hauler sleigh, that interlake toboggan that I pull a lot of the time if I got propane or wood going to one of the outposts or building supplies. It's nice to have that power, and this thing has so much zip. So the fastest I've put it to is 75 miles an hour. I'm sure you could get it faster depending on how much gear you have on there. But I mean, I love cruising this thing with a full load. I can easily go, 40, 50 miles an hour, which is, a great pace and faster than you need to go a lot of the time. But yeah, we're gonna start at the front of the sled. We'll work our way to the back, and I'll kind of talk through the accessories and how I have some of this stuff rigged. All right, moving forward on the sled, we got the bumper and the hitch receiver. This is my most recent addition, so we don't really have any B-roll or past content of it because I just added it, and I was waiting for it before I did this video because this is something I've wanted for a while. So the bumper has a few different features. Bushwhacking a little bit, if you're hitting branches, it's just protecting the snowmobile. So there's the aspect of just one more barrier, one more bumper to help protect the sled, but as well, with that receiver on the front, now you've got 1.25 inch receiver. And in this case, I got a cargo rack on here, and I'm also gonna show you a winch that you can put in the front. So basically, you just pull the pin, you can pull it out just for demonstration purposes. I put a couple empty jerry cans on here, but you can fit 2 jerry cans, you can fit a live scope, you can obviously fit a tote with some camera gear. It keeps your gas obviously out of your toboggan if you're going ice camping and worried about it getting in there. This rack in particular says it's rated for 20 pounds and 15 miles per hour. So, I mean, use at your own judgment. Obviously this is more than 20 pounds, a live scope's gonna be more, and there's different ways to strap it down, but this is what my buddy Joe Cooper does, fishing and guiding in the Northwest Angle, and he loves his front rack, uses it all the time, and it sometimes saves you from needing to have that back toboggan. So cargo rack was reason number 1 for this receiver on the front, but secondly was a winch. There's situations where I'm snowmobiling by myself. I love going on these exploratory missions, and having a winch can get you out of so many pinches. If you saw the Uncut Angling video with Joe Cooper and Aaron Weeb, they were out in the middle of nowhere up in Northwest Territories, and the winch came in handy so many times. So it's something that I wanted for safety and just to be able to explore a little more. So I made a little homemade bracket here on the bottom of my winch, which fits perfectly into the hitch receiver. I think eventually what I'll do is I'll probably get a little pigtail for the battery that comes out of the front of the sled, and then I'll put a little pigtail at the back too, and we'll run it off the starting battery. So right now I just got this Norsk 50 amp hour battery for demonstration purposes I got hooked up. But yeah, I mean, there you go. We got a winch on the sled to help get your buddy out of slush or pull your sled out of a sketchy situation or whatever. All right, we're moving back on the sled. There's so much to talk about. This little area here, there's a lot going on. We'll get to that, but first we'll talk about the display. So this is the bigger option of the two displays. This is the 7.8-inch color LCD display. To be completely honest, like a lot of the time I'm looking forward, so I'm not staring at that so much. And the screens, without having them configured, they are blocked a little bit, but basically it's got your RPMs, miles per hour, temperature. It hooks up to Bluetooth if you want to, you know, take phone calls while you're driving or listen to music or whatever, which I haven't really taken advantage of that. It controls my air suspension. I can see between level 1 or level 5 of what my air suspension is set at. So if I'm riding by myself, I don't have much gear, I'm typically keeping it at level 1. If I have it maxed out with a buddy on the back, tons of gear, I'm jacking it up to 5, which just stops me from bottoming out when I'm hitting a big bump and gives you more suspension, obviously. So the air suspension is nice because I have so much variety in the loads that I'm riding with. This compartment behind the screen, this has a cool little zippered pouch, and it actually is a phone warming device. So there's a little a cord in the back, and it keeps whatever's inside of it warm. So for your phone, in this case, I use my Garmin InReach. This is a safety device I bring along, and if I don't have service, I can always reach out with that. But it's nice to keep it warm, or your phone, because there's nothing worse than a cold dead phone when you're out and need to contact somebody. And then underneath it, I keep just some other essentials. I got my headlamp and my visor cord. And then going further back here onto the handlebars, at the base of the handlebars here, you can see this little Y. You can actually pull this and you can adjust it if you want it closer or further away, which is pretty sweet depending on, you know, your posture on when you ride. I keep it a little bit taller. Okay, now we're looking at the command station. Obviously 2 graphs you might think is overkill on the front, but for me, it's just all about the situation, making sure I have the mapping. I've got some older auto charting data, so that's why I have, you know, the second graph on there. There is sometimes just the Garmin on the front, but basically I have a homemade bracket on the back here and this ArcLab store-bought bracket in the front. There used to be that grip handle, that rubber grip handle that comes up in the middle there. So I took that out, and that's what allowed me to rig everything up here. So it is a lot going on, and maybe it hurts my steering a little bit. Obviously, if I got tossed forward on the sled, I'd be breaking these. Both the power cords go through with all this other rigging that goes in behind the handlebars. But yeah, that's as far as waypoint management. I could hook a transducer up to this. Going over the handlebars, you've got the heated grips, which these things get absolutely smoking hot. Your heated throttle. The other thing that I didn't realize about this throttle is it actually flips. So after a long day of riding, let's say you got a long ride and your thumb's kind of awkward, you can actually reverse the throttle. Maybe that's new. I only found out about it a couple of weeks ago, and I was like, holy smokes, how did I not know that? You got your kill button there. Down below here, this is one of my other favorite features, is the high and low gear. If you're ripping around on the lake, you're probably gonna have it on high gear most of the time, but when you're going through the bush, maybe you got a big load behind you, the low gear is amazing. It stops you from burning out the track, gives you it's better for crawling and going slow, right? Sometimes when you're on the high gear, it'll make things a little zippier. So when I got a big load and I'm crawling through the woods, I'll put it into low gear. I'll put it into eco mode so it doesn't rev as quickly either, and it's just amazing for crawling through, especially with the track I have, which I'll talk about later. But like I said, heated grips, heated throttle, it's amazing. On the left side here, you've got the orange button, which starts up the sled as well, kicks it into reverse when it's running. You got your high beams, you've got your 2 buttons here for throttle and grip heat control, and then down below, like I said, here's a little control panel that does your air suspension, your trip odometer. This little cap is for your visor cord. Below it is your eco mode, standard mode, sport mode, and then this is called the E-Link system. So this is actually the key. This thing has, I don't know exactly, some sort of computer chip inside of it, but that is what stops your snowmobile from getting stolen, and it doubles as your kill cord. Obviously, just like a kill cord for a boat, it pulls out and it kills the engine. So if you keep this on your bibs all the time when you go fishing, you don't have to worry about, you know, someone stealing your sled. And if you get tossed from the sled, then you're safe. Well, that is it for the front. A lot of stuff going on there. Moving to the back, this is the 2-up seat. Beautiful thing to have. There's a lot of time where cameraman Brandon is hopping on the back, and that's why it's nice to have so much storage on the sled, because in a dream world, you want to stay as mobile as possible. So with Brandon on the back, a little gear on the front, as much gear as possible here, we don't have to pull toboggan. So it just keeps you a little more agile. But 2-up seat, this one's awesome. This little switch here is for the heated grips. We're gonna pop it open and show you the business underneath it. So there's these 2 latches on the side here. We're gonna pop that open and flip this up. So this cord right here, you see that's the cord that attaches for the heated grips there. And then underneath you've got storage. So I love this. This is kind of like my glove box in my vehicle. This is where I keep the essentials. It's a little tougher to get at, obviously, with this latch and everything. So it's not stuff that I need to get out a bunch, but it's things that could save the day is what I keep in here. So right in the center, you've got your little Nook case here. This is a first aid kit, some bandages, some painkillers. This is the essentials. I think you should always have, you know, a first aid kit. I do like the hard cases for the fact that it doesn't get wet and gross in there. If you take a little peek over the side here, you can see I've got a Norsk battery in here. So you see these two cords coming out the back. This is one of the bigger modifications I did, is I actually ran some cords from the handlebars underneath the gas tank, because the gas tank is right here. And then this is a direct feed for my graph batteries right to this Norsk lithium. So I like having the dedicated battery. I don't have to worry about if I leave my graphs on all day that I'm potentially gonna kill my starting battery, because like I said, there's no pull start. Underneath this little latch right here, this is actually the starting battery for the snowmobile. It's a lot bigger than it looks. It actually sticks a couple inches back there, so it is a substantial size battery. Before I added this Norsk in here, I did have my graphs rigged off of it. So this battery as well has a couple USBs on the back. It has a USB-C and a USB-A. So as well, once again, if I kill my phone, I've got a backup battery always with me to charge my phone. This is a 30 amp hour battery. So those two screens, I can get 2 full days of ice fishing if I have them both running all day. You don't need to keep the screens on all day when you fish, but if you forget them on, you can get multiple days with that battery. I have some toilet paper, which is always a good thing to bring. This right here is my safety bag. I like these little zippered pouches. This has trailer pins, hitches. These are worth their weight in gold when you're in the bush. I can't tell you how many times a buddy having, or myself having, an extra hitch pin has saved a trip. And then as well, I've got more visor cords. Another thing that you hate to break or lose, or you run off the sled and you're still corded up and you rip it. So having extras of those is always important. I got a pack of zip ties as well, another thing that can save the day. And then I got this is actually a little Rotax BRP toolkit. And basically this is like exactly what you need for your Ski-Doo, like the exact bits that are the most commonly used on your machine. So that's a really handy thing to have along. All right, this is the other option if I'm not bringing someone with me or they're bringing their own snowmobile. This is the SR50 utility bag, just a big open box that's really easy to get at. So this is what I like to use when I'm fishing by myself for live scope. So if you want, you can even just take the lid off of it, which I often do altogether. It's a big zippered pouch. So this bag I'm using for my HE Innovations live scope shuttle. It's a nice big open bag. It's not gonna bounce out of here. I'm not driving crazy enough that I'm gonna bounce the whole thing out. But the other thing I like is I'm not having to worry about strapping it or closing it. I keep it open pretty much all day. The shuttle goes in from spot to spot. I'm just pulling the shuttle out if I want. I can even have enough live scope cord out that I can just drop the transducer in and actually keep the shuttle inside of this container if you want. But most of the time it's just run and gun in and out with the live scope. So that is the SR50 utility bag. All right, we're at the back end of the snowmobile now, and we'll start off with the auger rack. Full transparency, I've rolled this sled 2 or 3 times on its side, and if it wasn't for the auger rack, it potentially could have been worse. This thing is built so strong that it actually stopped it. It bent the handle on my auger, but it stopped from something worse happening, and that is me, operator error, driving in situations I shouldn't have been, not balancing properly, so I'm not blaming that on the sled. But this auger rack is so beefy. So basically it's got kind of 2 mechanisms that lock it in. This one up here, it cranks it down really tight, and then down below there's another little lever you pull back, and it's this claw that opens it up. And when you look at the auger rack, originally when you look at it online, it's actually more so made for a cylindrical tubular style auger, like an old school auger. Obviously this new Ion, being the hex shaft, is a little bit different, so I had to do some slight modifications. And you will see here on the one receiver end of the auger flighting, if you look online, it is rubber coated. So I actually had to bend the receiver a little bit to make it work and peel the rubber off to give it a little bit of a bigger gap to hold it, but it holds it on rock solid. 8-inch or 10-inch flight is no problem. Right here it locks at the top, and you can adjust how tight you want that. And then at the bottom too, you just hit that other mechanism, and you can see it's got a little bit of wiggle at the bottom because of my modification, but the top here, like, I am moving the whole sled. So I've been very impressed with that. All right, so next we got the big Lynx cargo container in the back. This is the biggest one that they make for the Expedition. I think they have a new one coming out now that's kind of a split tier, but this one is your biggest open storage container on the whole deal. So often I keep, camera gear in here. In this case, I got the HE Innovations live scope, batteries, live scope pole, shovel, all sorts of goodies. These 2 straps are beautiful, keeps the door open. Right here you can see the Lynx logo, and you can see these little indents. So those are actually spots to mount more Lynx brackets, because You always want to maximize, like I'm talking about. Always, how can I fit as much gear as possible on the sled? So on top, I put 4 Lynx receivers. So this one in the front, this is the Lynx, I think it's called the Sport Bag. This one is where I keep my day-to-day accessories, things that I want the most accessible go in here. So I got, you know, Costas, I got some gloves, I got my tackle box and release tools. So this one is just really easy to get to. And it might be that type of box that I want to bring home at the end of the day. So we'll hop over to the other side of the sled here. So right now, I pop it open on this side, and just like that, now I can take this bag in. So if it's got, you know, my wallet, my phone, whatever I want handy throughout the day, it's really easy to pop off. This is where I keep a lot of my tackle, so it's easy if I want to rig rods at the end of the day. So like I said, these are those 2 little receivers, and you can put kind of whatever other accessory. Now to the rod rack, which I know it looks pretty ridiculous. This is homemade. I'm pretty proud of this. It took a bit of work, but these little Lynx brackets down here, you can buy them online wherever, and I couldn't find a rod rack for this, so I was like, hey, I got to build my own. So there's kind of 2 aspects to this. I wanted to be able to have low profile without rod tips sticking in the air, because when you're going on those exploratory missions in the bush, narrow portages, you don't want your rods sticking up like this. You will break rod tips going through narrow bush trails. But then there's other times you're out on Lake Winnipeg, out on a big open lake, and it's like, you're not worrying about your canopy. You can have as many rods as you want. They can stick up in the sky. So that's why this is kind of the best of both worlds. I got these 2 Lynx brackets on either side. Unclip them, you can pop this up. I got these little pieces of angle iron, a 2x4, 1 pre-made, you know, store-bought rod tube, and then on the other side, I got a couple pieces of PVC there. So I'm pretty proud of this rod tube. If someone wants to steal my design, by all means, go for it. But right there, right into the Lynx bracket, you lock it down. I've been using this for 2 seasons now, and it's been rock solid. So that's the rod rack. I'm pumped on it. Might be something I try to redesign in the future, make a little more robust, but it's lasted 2 seasons, so it's been good. All right, so still on the Lynx cargo container on the back, they do have these couple inserts for these couple more accessories. Having an axe along is sweet. So this insert is for an axe. This little Fisker's axe I found is the perfect size. So if you're starting a fire, all of a sudden I had to chop down a tree that's in the way. It's one of those things where you strap in the side and you don't think about it all season until you need it. And then you're so thankful you have it along. On the other side, they market it, I guess, as a spot for a saw, but I use it for my ice scoop. So once again, he's got these little rubber tie downs, and this is where I put my little frostbite scoop in the side. Measuring tape, ice chisel, all the good stuff. But you can also put a live scope puller there. It kind of tucks in nicely right behind the plastic, and then you just strap it in and haven't lost it yet. Okay, last accessory back here, chainsaw holder. Got this electric chainsaw a couple years ago. It's been good. You're not gonna chop down 20 trees on a battery, especially because if you keep the battery up here, it gets cold. So if I'm going on a long ride, I do like to pull it out. But when it's warm like this, no problem keeping the battery in there. Basically, it's really quick. You pull that one lever, pull it out, chop down a tree, and slides right back in. All right, to the back, nothing too crazy. This is your hitch for towing, obviously. Once again, it's that 1.25" receiver, so it's really easy to pull out. I can put that winch in there if I need to put the winch in the back to maybe pull myself out or pull somebody else out of a situation. And here's one of the other things. Obviously, there's a lot of options when it comes to picking a sled. I talked to my buddy Troy Mansfield. He's a sled nut. He does a lot of outpost, backcountry stuff. And I said, hey, like, what would you pick for specs on the sled? He said, okay, I would go with the 20-inch track. He said, that's just the best track width. I don't really know too much about track width, so I said, hey, this is what you do all the time. I'm gonna listen to you. And then he said, you should go with the studded track. So this is the 1.5-inch Ice Cobra. So it's got studs on it, and there's so many situations, like I said, when it's, you know, like let's say late in the season, you got a little bit less snow and you're crawling through a portage, or I'm loading or unloading, you know, my sled. Anytime you need more traction, it's amazing having this studded track. So I would highly recommend that. I just don't slide out nearly as much. The amount of traction is amazing, especially with that low gear. And the only other thing that I've added on the side here is some scratchers to help kick up some snow. You know, when it's glare ice late in the season, you need a little more snow kicking up underneath there. All right, that is it of the walkthrough of my 2024 Ski-Doo Expedition. This thing's a beast. I know my past sled failed me in the bush a couple times. This thing has been a beast. It gives me confidence to go explore in the backwoods and to haul way too much gear. So anyways, this thing is an ice fishing machine, and it's definitely gonna be part of the arsenal for a long time. So thank you for watching. If you guys have comments on what you think I should add, what I should modify, or questions in general, comment down below. I know I appreciate these type of walkthrough videos, so hopefully you do too. And we'll catch you on the ice very, very soon.